And let's pray. Lord, we thank you that the full complement is here today, and we just ask you bless this, bless our time together, and speak to us through your word. And we ask this in Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so we're picking up in chapter 8, right? The flood is Noah and them are all in the ark, and then the flood waters are going to start to subside. So that's where we're picking up here in chapter 8. So we're not going to get very far before I stop us, so chapter 8, verse 1. But God remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the livestock that were with him on the ark. And I stop there because, and God remembered, it kind of sounds like God forgot about them. He didn't forget about them. He wasn't like, oh no, I totally forgot about Noah and those animals. That's all. Yeah, that's what we do. But remembered is like an anthropomorphism. Which is like putting human characteristics on God, right? Because that's sometimes the only way we can understand him, right? Because he's God. We're human beings, right? So other examples of that in the Bible that I'm sure some of you have noticed before was, you ever heard things like, and God changed his mind, or God relented. Those kind of things that make it sound like God changed, like someone convinced him to do something different. But that's an anthropomorphism. It means, God knew what he was going to do, right? So it's not like he was like, oh, you know what? A good example would be Sodom and Gomorrah, where Lot is like, Abraham's like, well, if there's 6 good people in Sodom and Gomorrah, will you spare it? And God's like, okay, let's say save them to the end. If there's 4 good people, will you spare it? Okay, I'll spare it. That, like, is he really convincing God? Or is, no, but so that's like, it kind of gives that impression, but it's anthropomorphism. Sometimes things in the scripture, we use human kind of terms to describe what's going on. So the whole point is that they were floating and God decided to do something with this whole situation. So verse 2. The fountains of the deep and the windows of the heaven were closed. So the sources of the water were closed, right? And the rain from the heavens was restrained. You can kind of feel like God's turning off all the faucets. And the waters receded from the earth continually. At the end of the 150 days, the waters had abated. So, there would have been amazing geological change through a worldwide flood like this, right? I mean, we're talking, there's areas in the earth where there's sediment layers where there's layers where animals are going. This is one example about problems with the sediment layers, saying these are epochs, is that sometimes there's fossils going up through multiple layers. How is that millions of years if there's like a tusk or something going up through multiple layers? Well, if sediment is being pushed and shoved in, and then you kind of picture like a washing machine of water, and it keeps pushing the sediment and keeps compacting it and burying creatures and animals. And the Grand Canyon could have been and I think was formed by this worldwide flood. We're talking like torrents of water that would just tear through Earth, and the Earth no doubt the Earth would have been different, very different from when they went into the ark. They came out of the ark in the world that we have today, largely, right? I mean, there's some things change, but in the thousands of years since this happened, 5,000-6,000 years, the Earth is largely the same as it was for them.
They realized they were not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah, they were not in Kansas anymore. So let's continue on. Verse 4. And in the 7th month, on the 7th day of the month, this is very specific, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. That would have been in Turkey. And it's interesting, you ever notice it says on the mountains, plural, of Ararat? You hear people say that, it's true, we say, Noah's Ark landed on Mount Ararat. Well, there is a Mount Ararat, but there's also the mountains of Ararat. So we do not know that the ark landed on the Mount Ararat. It says it was in the mountains of Ararat. So it could have been any of those mountains around there, but it is in Turkey. So and those mountains still exist today. So the ark was or is possibly, or some remnant of it might still be there. There was a documentary done several years ago. I think there's been a bunch of them done, right? Where people do expeditions and they think they see it and say they took pictures of it. But bottom line is we don't have any proof of that, right? That anybody's actually modern day has found Noah's Ark. But it's interesting, back in 275 BC, a Chaldean priest said this in his writings, that this is 275 years before Jesus. He said he noted in his writings that people in his day were taking the pitch from Noah's Ark and were making amulets with it. And then Josephus, who was a Jewish historian, you'll hear me refer to him a lot because we get a lot of history from him during the time of Jesus and shortly after Jesus. He said that even during the times of Jesus and right after, people were going up to the ark, getting bits of the ark and making relics out of it. So there are historical accounts of people that people did find the ark and were taking pieces of it and making stuff out of it. And so we'll continue on here with verse 5. And the waters continued to abate until the 10th month in the 10th month, on the first day of the month, the tops of the mountains were seen. So now you're going to notice it says at the end of 40 days, Noah opened up the window. So we're kind of backing up here. So they kind of give like a flyby of the whole drying up period. And now they're going to back up to after 40 days in the water. So now they're still in the boat. So now we're backing up a little bit. And it says, at the end of 40 days, Noah opened up the window in the ark that he had made and sent forth a raven. It went to and fro until the waters were dried up from the earth. Then he sent forth a dove from him to see if the waters have subsided from the ground. But the dove found no place to set her foot, and she returned to him in the ark, for the waters were still on the face of the whole earth. So he put out his hand and took her and brought her into the ark with him. He waited another 7 days, and again he sent forth the dove out of the ark. And the dove came back to him in the evening, and behold, in her mouth was a freshly plucked olive leaf. So Noah knew that the waters had subsided from the earth. Then he waited another 7 days and sent forth the dove, and she did not return to him anymore. So this is pretty interesting. It's one thing you got to be careful when you look at scripture is not try to symbolize something that's not symbolic. You understand what I mean? I've heard people like look at this. Well, the raven represented this, and the dove represented this, and the olive branch represents this. Where do you get that from the text? It's always a question you have to ask. Anytime you want to make something a symbol, you got to say, does the text say it's a symbol, or does later on the Bible do they say it's a symbol? Right? We have a symbol coming up here pretty soon, the rainbow, right? And it's saying, this is a symbol for all men. He's literally saying, this is a symbol, right? And the ark can be symbolic because later on in the New Testament, they say, as 7 people were saved in the ark. And he talks about our salvation through Jesus Christ. He's kind of like the new ark. So that's one where the Bible tells us a second meaning to it. But so for stuff like this, it's telling us a historic account of what happened is all. So Noah sent out a raven first. Now, what do ravens eat? Carrion, right? They'll eat anything, but they're largely carrion eaters. You see them in the middle of the road, you're driving down the road and they're in the middle of the street eating something real quick and your car comes by and they fly away. And then as soon as you pass, they come right back again, right? Ravens, they'll eat almost anything, but they're largely carrion eaters. So he sent the raven away and it didn't come back. So Noah likely decided to try a different kind of bird to see if he could get a different response. What do doves eat? They eat nuts and seeds, right? Nuts, seeds, berries, that kind of thing. So yeah, they're vegans. So he would send So they would get possibly a different response from it, right? So he sent the dove out, and the dove came back with an olive branch. Again, you don't want to. We do, make in our culture, the olive branch is a symbol of peace, right? But that's us. That's our culture placing a symbolism on something. That's not something that the Bible does. All this is saying in the text is that the bird brought back an olive branch. That's just what happened. So to make it symbolic is really to add to the text. So he came back with an olive branch, and then he sent him out again. And this time, the dove did not return. What this would have indicated to Noah is that the dove had found a place to roost or to nest, right? So that would send him a signal that the earth was drying up, and so that would really have been an encouragement, wouldn't it have? Okay, chapter 8. See, we just did a whole chapter. You guys we're on a roll here. I mean, we're on chapter 9. I mean, oh wait, we're not done yet. Okay, verse 13. In the 601st year, in the first month, the first day of the month, the waters were dried from off the earth, and Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. So I don't know, maybe he felt that thump. You know what I mean? If you're in a boat and you hit ground, right, you're going to notice. And we just know that something signaled him that the earth was now dry. I'm guessing they hit ground on the mountains of Ararat, and he looked out the window. So in the second month of the 27th day of the month, the earth had dried out. Then God said to Noah, "Go out from the ark, you and your wife and your sons wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing that is with you of all flesh, birds and animals and creeping things that creep on the earth, that they may swarm on the earth and be fruitful and multiply on the earth." So Noah went out, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him. Every beast, every creeping thing, and every bird, everything that moves on the earth went out by families from the ark. So there they go. There are all these animals that are all just going to leave and be fruitful and multiply and once again populate the earth with life. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord and took some of every clean animal and some of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. You might remember that back when he was bringing animals on the ark, they were bringing pairs, except he brought 7 of clean animals, right? The point was, if he would have, because he knew he was going to make a sacrifice. I mean, this doesn't take rocket science. If he would have only brought 2 sheep and sacrificed one of them, right? That's going to be the last sheep that ever lives, right? So he brought 7 of the animals that were clean for sacrifice. So he said that when he knew when he landed, he was going to offer a sacrifice to God. So, and the Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, and the Lord said in his heart, "I will never again curse the ground because of man. For the intention of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I ever again strike down every living creature as I have done." Now that doesn't say he would never destroy every living creature again, as I have done. I mean, in other words, in the same way. So we're going to, a little bit later in this chapter, he's going to say he will never destroy the earth with water again. And we know from the book of Revelation that the earth will be destroyed again, but this time with fire and all the elements will be melted. So first time with water, less complete. Second time with fire. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. Okay, chapter 9. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth." Who did he say that to before? Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Adam and Eve, right? So once again, he's telling them to go and reproduce and have a lot of kids and fill the earth with life. He continues on, "The fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth and upon every bird of the heavens, upon everything that creeps on the ground, and all the fish of the sea, into your hands they are delivered. What this is interesting because it's true that animals all have an instinctive hesitancy or kind of like a fear of man. That's not to say they'll never attack us and kill us. It happens sometimes, right? We've heard lions attacking people, but typically they have an instinctual hesitation, and they usually only become man eaters after they get a taste for like the lions that are habitual killers, or bears will usually, if you're messing with their baby, or if they're really hungry. But typically, for the general, most animals, even ones that could easily hurt us, see us. If you go into the woods and see wolves, typically if a wolf sees you, it's going to turn around and split. Bottom line is the wolf could pretty easily kill us. But God's placed this fear, at this point, this natural fear for animals against for human beings. So the question you have to ask is why? Why did God add that fear into animals at this point? Well, we find out in the next verse why suddenly God placed a survival instinct in animals to avoid human beings. Okay, here it is. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. As I gave you the green plants, I give you everything. But, okay, so I'll stop right there. So it appears as though, you'll be happy to hear, it appears as though before Noah's Ark, human beings just ate plants and vegetables and not meat products. Because he says here, in Adam and Eve, he says, I give you the plants and seeds and the fruits of these trees to eat, but not the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And then here, he says, but now I will make animals fear you, and you're going to start eating animals. So that's a healthy fear, right? For the animals to run away from human beings, because otherwise it would be really easy for us to kill them all if they just stood there and was like, shooting, what do they call that? Shooting something in a barrel, shooting fish in a barrel, right? It's not even a challenge. So he gave animals a natural instinct. So we can eat meat. We're allowed to eat meat now, but it continues on. And, but, so there's the big but there. But you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is its blood. Okay. Now here we have that he's telling Noah and them not to drink blood, not to eat animals with your, even today in most cultures, if they slaughter an animal, they drain the blood, right? He's saying here that is the life of the animal. So he's telling them not to eat meat without draining the blood first. And it's interesting because later in Leviticus, God will tell the Israelites that the same thing. And this is what you don't have to turn there, but it's in chapter 17, verse 10. He says, if anyone in the house of Israel or of the strangers who sojourns among them eats any blood, I will set my face against that person who eats blood and will cut him off from among his people. For the life of the flesh, here's the reason why, for the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it for you on the altar to make atonement for your souls. So he's saying the life of an animal is in the blood, and I have given you the blood to offer as a sacrifice on the altar of atonement. That's the purpose of the blood of an animal. He says, for it is the blood that makes atonement by the life. Then he continues on in verse 14, for the life of every creature is its blood. Its blood is its life. Therefore, I have said to the people of Israel, you shall not eat the blood of any creature, for the life of every creature is in its blood. Whoever eats it shall be cut off. Now, I pulled up the Gospel Coalition had this is just a little paragraph. It's not real long, but I want to read this to you because it talks about the why of this a little bit. And I think it might give you some insight. It says, two important truths are communicated here. First, blood is sacred because it represents life. As Alan Ross explains, when blood is shed, life is relinquished. Second, within the sacrificial system, the lifeblood is the means by which atonement is made for the one bringing the sacrifice. Based on this reasoning, one can see why animal blood was a fitting, albeit imperfect, type of final sacrifice, whose blood alone actually takes away sins. For these reasons, the Israelites weren't to devalue blood by human consumption. So that's kind of the message here. Does this mean Christians shouldn't drink blood now? This seems to have been connected. The prohibition against this from Leviticus here seems to be tying that prohibition to the sacrificial system, right? That the sacredness of an animal is in its blood, so that sacredness is designated for sacrifice to the Lord, the life in the animal. God gave that animal life, so you're to give that life back to God. That seems to be the message here. Now, it's not really our cultural thing to drink blood, right? So it's not really an issue for us. It is healthier, and meat tastes better if you drain it. If you don't drain it, it's going to taste irony and metallic-y. Have any of you ever had meat where they didn't drain it right? You have, Hallie? Yeah. You have too? It doesn't taste right, does it? See? So it's better health-wise to not eat the blood anyway. Okay, let's continue on here.
Did we go past the part where it says here, animals that kill people must die, and any person...
I haven't gotten there yet. No,
I'm sorry. Okay, never mind.
That's right. Okay, so verse, I think we're in 5 now. Oh, yeah, but you shall not eat the flesh with life, but it's okay. And for your lifeblood, I will require a reckoning from every beast. I will, what's this right here? Sorry, I just wrote something here. Okay. I will require a reckoning for every beast. I will require it from the man. So what this is talking about, in the Mosaic covenant, they actually say this, that if God tells the Israelites that if my dog goes up and kills your sheep, then life for life. So what would they do? They usually would kill the animal that killed the other animal. So that's kind of like the thing here. If an animal kills an animal, then its lifeblood will be demanded of it. And for your lifeblood, I will require a reckoning from every beast. I will require it, and from his fellow man, I will require a reckoning for the life of a man. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For God made man in his image. What we have here is humankind being of immense value. And it seems to be that, there's a double reckoning for murder. This is talking about murder. So there's a double reckoning for murder. 1, in verse 5, it says there's a reckoning from God. He said, I will require it from the man, from the murderer. From his fellow man, I will require a reckoning for the life of a man. So if someone kills a man, and murder is a very high crime in the eyes of God. Have you ever heard someone say all sins are the same in the eyes of God? That's nonsense. The Bible does not say that. There's a verse say, there are 7 sins the Lord hates, 6 that he abhors, right? Not all sins are the same in the eyes of God. So murder, which is destroying the image of God, is clearly very important to God, because he says here that if someone kills someone, he will reckon from them. And then the second reckoning is from his fellow man. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man his blood shall be shed. For God made man in his own image. And we see whenever Israel comes around, and whenever we get to that point in our study, you'll see that was the punishment. If someone was a murderer, they were to be executed. That was, and it did deter quite a bit murder. Verse 7. And you, he's going to repeat this again. Be fruitful and multiply. One thing you notice in the Bible, if it repeats something, it's important. Okay? So this is like repeated. I think this is the 3rd time just in this chapter, right? Or second. Be fruitful and multiply, saying again, increase greatly on the earth and multiply in it. Okay, he's kind of repeat, even in that one verse right there. Be fruitful, multiply, increase greatly, and multiply. Okay, we're getting the point here, God. You know what I mean? But he's stressing it. He wants them to make a lot of babies. Okay. And God said to Noah and to his sons with him, behold, okay, now this is a covenant here. I establish my covenant with you. This is called the Noahic covenant. It's the first major covenant. You can say there's the Adamic covenant, but this one's A real simple covenant. It's just a covenant that God will never destroy the earth with a flood again. So let's see what he says. I establish my covenant with you and your offspring after you. Who's Noah's and his kids' offspring? Everybody alive right now, right? So that's all of us. So he establishes this covenant with Noah and us, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the livestock, and every beast on the earth with you, as many as came out of the ark. It is for every beast of the earth. I establish my covenant with you, that never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of a flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, this is a sign of the covenant that I make between me and you, and every living creature that is with you, for all future generations. You see the stressing, he's stressing this is for everybody, like all of your offspring, future generations, all animals, all the livestock, even the unclean ones, right? He's kind of stressing. I have set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth, and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant that is between me and you, and every living creature of all flesh, and the waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the bow is in, this is obviously the rainbow, right? When the bow is in the clouds, I shall see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. God said to Noah, this is the sign of the covenant that I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth.
The description of the covenant, as you were saying a minute ago, is also mentioned in a number of other places here too.
Yep, it is.
To reinforce hey, this is a really big, it's 4 times, so it's a really, 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 really big deal.
Yeah.
Take notice.
Yep. And it's a, yep.
That's a true verse, like you said about the rainbow.
Mhm.
We see a rainbow today.
Yeah, well, that's a mockery of this. So that's what Satan does. Verse 18, the sons of Noah, who went forth from the ark with Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. Now, what do you think that Canaan, do you know about any group in the Bible that sounds like Canaan? Remember the Canaanites, who became kind of a pain in the butt to Israel, right? So his kids would be known as the sons of Canaan. He was the father of Canaan, the father of the Canaanites. These were the sons of Noah. And from these, the people of the whole earth were dispersed. Noah began to be a man of the soil. What do you think that means? He's a farmer. He became a farmer, a gardener. And he planted a vineyard. He drank the wine and became drunk and lay uncovered in his tent. And Ham, so he drank so much that he ended up naked in his tent, right? And so kind of probably felt a little stupid, but he was wasted. And Ham, the father of Canaan, here we go. Here's that Ham guy, the Canaanites again. We're going to kind of see why the Canaanites are going to be kind of a pain. But he saw the nakedness of his father and told his 2 brothers outside. Okay, so he finds his father naked, and instead of respecting him and covering him or whatever, he goes out. You won't believe, Dad's in there, buck naked, laying there, wasted. Right? It's really a he's shaming him, right? And like kind of capitalizing on his error and shaming him. So he goes out and tells his brothers. Now we're going to see Shem and Japheth are going to respond differently to this. And Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both of their shoulders, and walked backward and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned backward, and they did not see their father's nakedness. So we have Ham who goes in there, looks at his dad, I'm going to tell them about this, goes out, and so he's just like, walking. But we're going to see his brothers are going to protect his father's dignity. So what they do, knowing he's naked, so they hold the blanket, They walk backwards, so neither of them are looking at his nakedness. They walk backwards together, cover up his nakedness, cover up his shame, and then walk out. You see the difference, like the reverence for your father there compared to Ham, and despite his bad decision, drinking is not a sin in the Bible, but drunkenness is, and he was wasted. He was so drunk that he got naked in there, right? So he was drunk, but despite his bad decision, they respected him. They respected his dad, and which was a biblical command later. We'll see, honor your father and your mother in the Lord. And it says, when Noah awoke from his wine, isn't it interesting? When he woke from his wine, you get that. He sobered up, right? That's how we say it these days. When Noah woke from his wine and knew what his youngest son had done to him, he said. So we're going to get an understanding here, what he says to Ham, an understanding about why the Canaanites and why Ham and the Canaanites, which are his offspring, will play a key role later here in the Bible. We're going to find out why they become such a key figure. So he says, "Cursed be Canaan." Isn't it interesting that he says, "Cursed be Canaan," because Ham's son was going to be named Canaan. So apparently he was already born. It doesn't say, and he bore Canaan yet, but apparently he's already born, because Noah says, "Cursed be Canaan. A servant of servants shall he be to his brothers." He also said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem." So he's going to, Ham cursed, right? And Canaan, his son, but Shem, the God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. And by the way, the Shem, have you ever heard the term Semite, referring to Jews? That they believe that's where that came from, because his offspring, Shem's offspring, were the Israelites, the Jews. So Semite is where they believe that came from. And verse 27, may God enlarge Japheth. And Japheth's ancestors would travel into largely Europe. And let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. And after the flood, Noah lived 350 years. All the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. So this chapter 10, we're going to whip through this quick. This is a genealogy. It's called, we're just going to read through it. I'm going to tell you a couple things. It's called the Table of the Nations, it's often called. This kind of tells us what started the nations of the Near East at this time, like what led to their existence. And this is only going to highlight nations that are important to Israel in some way. Because remember, the whole story of the scriptures is God bringing about the Messiah, right? All the way from the fall of man, and then he's going to start to bring about the Israelites and bring about the Messiah who will save humankind. People may say, well, why didn't the Bible tell us about how people in Chad came to be, or whatever? And well, it's kind of like saying, why doesn't my cookbook tell me how to change my oil in my car, right? Your cookbook has a purpose, right? And so this book has definite purpose to tell us about how the Messiah, aligned with the Messiah, how God prepared to save all mankind. So he says this: these are the generations of the son of Noah, Shem and Ham and Japheth. Sons were born to them after the flood. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog. You ever heard of Gog and Magog in the book of Revelation? So this is where that comes from. Magog, Madai, Javan, etc., etc. Then we're going to go to verse 4. The sons of Javan, Elisha, Tarshish. You're going to recognize the word Tarshish, possibly from later in the Bible. Kittim and Dodanim. I have no idea how to pronounce these. From these, the coastland people spread in their lands, each with their own language, by their clans in their nations. Interesting. He's kind of skipping ahead here, each with his own language. If you'll remember that in chapter 11, the Tower of Babel is where all these different languages start. So they're kind of skipping ahead here. that each of these people will be scattered to the coastlands because of what happens at Babel, at the Tower of Babel. And they'll be separated by their clans and their nations. The sons of Ham, Cush, Egypt, Egypt, Put, and Canaan, the Canaanites. The sons of Cush, Seba, Havilah, Sabda, Radamah, and Septica. The sons of Ramah, Sheba, the queen of Sheba, and Dedan. Cush fathered Nimrod. He was the first on earth to be a mighty man. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. In other words, that became a saying. Like Nimrod became the stereotypical hunter, right? So that's where apparently that was a saying in those days. So the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, the Tower of Babel, which will be the next chapter, which we'll get to next week. Erech, Akkad, and Calneh, and in the land of Shinar, which is I'll get to that in a minute. From the land, he went into Syria and built Nineveh. So that's Babylon and Shinar, Rehoboth, Calah, and all those places. Nineveh and Calah. This is the great city. Egypt fathered Ludum, Anamin, Lehabim, etc., etc. And then we can see here Cushlahim, from whom the Philistines came. The Philistines, that's who with David and Goliath. So that's how the Philistines came to be about. Canaan fathered Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, and the Jebusites, and the Amorites, and the Girgashites, and the Hivites, the Archites, and the Sinites. We're going to skip down to verse 19. And the territory of the Canaanites extended from Sidon in the direction of Gerar as far as Gaza. That's where we have the Gaza Strip these days. And in the direction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, we're going to have the Sodom and Gomorrah coming up with Abraham and Lot. Admah and Zeboim as far as Lasha. These are the sons of Ham by their clans, their languages, their lands, and their nations. To Shem, and this is these are the Israelites. The Jews come from him. Also the father of all children of Eber, the elder son of Japheth, children was born. The sons of Shem, Elam, Ashur, Arpachshad, Lud, and Aram. The sons of Aram, Uz, Hul, Gether, and Mash. Arpachshad fathered Shelah, and Shelah fathered Eber. To Eber were born two sons. The name of the one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided. Now that's talking about chapter 11. In his days, in the days of this man Peleg, the earth was divided. That's the Tower of Babel, where everybody gets split because they don't know each other's languages, and then they all split. And his brother's name was Joktan. Joktan fathered Elmodad, Shelef, Hazar, whatever how you pronounce that. I'm going to skip down to 30. The territory in which they lived extended from Mesha in the direction of Sephir to the hill country of the east. These are the sons of Shem by their clans, their languages, their lands, and their nations. And then lastly, these are the clans of the sons of Noah, according to their genealogies, in their nations, and from these the nations spread abroad on the earth after the flood. So the whole point of that is just to tell for us, it's not as meaningful, but for the people who are reading this closer to this time, would have seen where the nations in their world came from and who their ancestors were and how they came to be. So next week we'll pick up at the Tower of Babel, the story that many of you know. So questions and comments?